views and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
And good evening and welcome to Worldview Tube's Washington Report for this evening, June 17th, 2025. Wow, that's all one can say sometimes, really, as fast as the news cycle is running. And tonight we have Iranian television saying that there is a surprise. There's a surprise tonight that the world will remember for centuries. I don't know what that's all about, but reportedly they also put out a video showing an Iranian hand stroking what looked like a nuclear missile bomb. Let's pray it doesn't go to that. But there are those saying if they're cornered and the regime has no choice, they may actually use a nuclear weapon in order to have revenge. Of course, remember their eschatology believes that the 12th Imam comes in under great global chaos. Joining me now is Jim Papp. He is our correspondent in D.C., and he is in Washington, D.C. tonight. Jim, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you.
Things are spinning fast, are they not, Jim?
They surely are, and also kind of slowed down because Donald Trump was putting out some messages that seemed to indicate imminent action, and that has seemed to be paused. They've had their they had gotten together late morning, his National Security Council, so they were discussing something. So moving fast, and still a big question on my mind. And that question is not whether Iran's going to do a nuke. I don't even think they have that capability. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. I know there's conflicting reports. Remember, our CIA analyst Peter Price said here before he passed away, saying he and Larry James Woolsey, the former CIA director, and others think they did. So that the fact that we don't even have clarity on that in itself, to me, is troubling.
Yeah, it is, and they were obviously doing everything in secret. The IAEA came out, no, as J.D. Vance rightly pointed out, no right-wing organization, but it took them 20 years to admit that Iran's not been performing their end of the bargain in terms of, observations of their nuclear program. Mm-hmm. So anything could happen, but also when you have a political system like theirs, yeah, they're going to be aggressive and probably try to give their scientists a lot of leeway, but they're also pushing them in certain ways that creativity can be harmed by it. So we really don't know, and we'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
We are getting reports right now from our reporter on the ground in Israel that Prime Minister Netanyahu and U.S. President Trump spoke and coordinated positions and moves in preparation for the U.S. military's entry into the war. That's breaking from our reporter on the ground in Israel right now.
Don't believe it. Now, that does not mean the planning's not in stage. I guarantee you that the Defense Department has got contingencies and operational plans available at any given time. I do not yet see Donald Trump getting in on this action, even in terms of dropping a MOAB on the facilities that are purportedly well underground, which, by the way, military analysts have said they've tested it and they can get down as far as what they believe the program to enrich uranium is at.
So but you still believe that President Trump is not going to get involved in any way other than defensively, not offensively?
As of this moment, yes. I'm not saying things won't change. I don't believe.
But if he does, what does that mean for the president's credibility and the MAGA movement?
Oh, there are going to be some questions. Although as I'm looking at social media today off and on, I'm seeing people who are pretty MAGA people saying, listen, we hired this guy to be strong and decisive and take good action. So there'll probably be some support. Others are going to be detractors if that would happen. My concern is I think he's going to make the best decision possible. And I have complete trust in Donald Trump's capability to work through this. I don't envy having to make the decisions that he has to make. But I really do believe that he needs to be very cautious about the fact that if you get into this, then you have to go into full regime change. And in Iran, that is far more difficult even than the mess that happened in Iraq. There's a large group of people in Iran, I would personally estimate well over 50%, that are highly supportive of regime change and would come on board with the West to want to do things. But there are still factions from Turkey, from Armenia. There are Kurds there as well, too. There is still a potential factionalism that can cause some problems. And don't forget, you're talking about tens of thousands of soldiers under the control of the IRGC, and those guys have been committed. And I'm sure some of them would pull away under certain circumstances, but you've still got a big mess on your hands. And Reza Pahlavi seems like a great guy, and I'm supportive of him in a general way. But listen, his family hasn't been anywhere near running a country for a long period of time. So what happens then if he fails for some reason? Mm-hmm. And I'm not predicting it, but you just don't know. So there are a lot of unknown factors here that make it really challenging to get into a regime change here that could cause just as many problems as we had in Iraq and Afghanistan, both of which efforts failed.
Here is what was going on not just a few hours ago in Israel. This was going on like an hour and a half ago or so. So my Red Alert app was going off as this was coming in. And the poor Israelis, they're exhausted, absolutely exhausted, up and down for some of them that live up on, top floors or mid floors, up and down to the bomb shelters. They're emotionally, spiritually, physically exhausted. I'll tell you something. I leave my Red Alert app on some nights, and that thing is going off. And I get up in the morning and I think, I'm so tired. That Red Alert app just kept disturbing my sleep. And I would get in, couldn't get into good sleep, deep sleep, because I woke up. And I thought, every American should do this just to get a sense of what war is like and what Israel's going through, because we're not under physical threat when our alarm goes off with these Red Alert apps. It just wakes us up and disturbs our sleep cycle, so we kind of wake up tired. Imagine, though, living it. And now you physically have to get out of bed, get your spouse, get your children, get to a bomb shelter, and then sit down there and then wait for the all clear and do this day in, day out, day in, day out. I cannot imagine the emotional and physical exhaustion and strain, the mental anxiety that many of these Israelis are going through, Jim.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. There is no sleep for these last 5 days for very many people in Israel. Certainly not, obviously, in the major cities. So
one of my Jewish friends from Israel sent me a meme that said, it was a picture of Moses that said, "Let my people sleep."
Yeah, that's literally the case. There's no way that you can sit back and not be constantly on edge. And some people, I'm sure, are still trying to go to work to the degree that they can, but their work gets interrupted. There was, I think, some missiles during their daytime today. It's a challenge, and it's hard on a family. Young children are struggling, I guarantee it, which just puts more stress on mothers and fathers. So you cannot imagine what it's like going through this. You just can't.
Absolutely not. Take a look at this. This will be right up your alley. Peter St. Otague, I don't know if that's how you say it. He's a PhD. You like to talk about the Fed. I like to talk about the Fed. This is an interesting little video I found today. Listen to this.
Reserve is set to pay $1.1 trillion to major banks, effectively paying them interest on the money that's already in their vaults. A new bill would end it. Last week, Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz introduced a bill to end the Fed's so-called interest on reserves program, where the Fed pays interest on the dollars banks are required to deposit with the Fed. So what happens is the Fed prints money to finance federal deficits and artificially boost the economy, both of which generate fat profits on Wall Street. It does this by pushing interest rates below market, and with something called quantitative easing, where it literally makes up imaginary money, uses it to buy stuff, putting the money into circulation. But the Fed knows that all that money creation also creates inflation, so it turns around and pays those same banks to park some of the new money at the Fed. So it's a giant self-licking ice cream cone that siphons nearly $200 billion a year from everybody who holds dollars. Now, up till the 2008 crisis, banks did not earn any interest on their reserves. After all, reserves are supposed to be like money in the vault, backing deposits. Bankers already had the exorbitant privilege of only needing to keep 10 cents on the dollar in the vault as reserves, with the Fed and Treasury standing ready to bail out the other 90 cents at taxpayer cost. But all that changed in 2008 when banks proved so reckless that they threatened to topple our entire financial system, at which point they were punished by getting interest on their reserves. The scam exploded during COVID, so in 2019, banks were parking about $2 trillion at the Fed, paying just 0.1% interest. So the Fed was paying banks $2 billion a year. 5 years later, that has grown to $3.5 trillion, paying 4.5% interest. So that's $187 billion per year. In fact, these interest payments now make up most of the profits of the entire American banking system. 187 billion interest versus 270 billion of bank profits. So 70 cents on the banker dollar siphoned directly out of your life savings, with a fat slab going to foreign banks. It is a big club and you ain't in it. Now, the Fed claims it needs to pay interest in order to soak up all the dollars the Fed printed. Of course, they don't phrase it that way. Remember, the Fed pretends money printing has nothing to do with inflation. In their world, inflation falls out of the sky, caused by greedy workers, greedy supply chains, animal spirits, boats stuck in the Suez, with the Fed heroically jumping in to pay bankers strip club tabs to keep the republic from collapsing. As James Grant put it, the arsonist pretending to be firemen. So it's next, brought to you by Unchained.com.
All right, there you go. You know, The Creature from Jekyll Island by Gord Griffin explains so much of this, doesn't it?
It does. There are a few things in that book that go a little farther than I would accept, but the fundamental thesis and fundamentally the information that he shares in that book is 100% on target. Listen, by the way, not close to Peter St. Onge. Peter St. Onge is his name. I'm not close to him, but we've become acquainted in the last year. This guy is right on target in everything he does and everything that he says. And he just exposed in this video, I shared it on my X timeline today, he shows very clearly that aspect of printing money that most people don't know about. Because we think that when the Federal Reserve's printing money, then they're printing money that's going into general circulation. That's not always the case. They do print money to do these bank reserves, and the banks, they make a killing on it. Everyone should read the Jekyll Island book. Everyone should, because you'll find out that the fix was really, really in. There were major players who wanted to scam the system. We have more wars. We have more debt. We have larger government in general, entirely because we have a Federal Reserve. It was impossible to create a government the size that we have prior to 1913. It was absolutely impossible. And the biggest reason that we did that in 1913 and that the UK went off the pound sterling during World War I as well was to go to war. I mean, that is specifically why the pound sterling went off of the gold standard. And this is something that we need to be aware of. It's one of the reasons we should be very disgusted about any wars. And, listen, this thing's going to play out in Iran one way or the other. And I think I have general faith in Donald Trump doing the right thing. But we do need to understand countries cannot go to war unless they have funny money. And everyone needs to watch this entire thing that Peter St. Onge had to learn one of the main reasons why that is. You're not in the club, folks. Other people are in the club. And one last thing, first mover advantage. Remember this. When the Fed does major printing of money, the people in the highest parts of the financial markets, they make out a killing because the inflation doesn't start settling into the economy until weeks or months later after the printing takes place. So everybody in these banks and in investment houses and elsewhere, they make their moves right away to adjust for it. They get first mover advantage. You're the one that has to pay the bill after.
Mm-hmm. Take a look at this. FBI Director Kash Patel tweeted this out. The FBI has located documents which detail alarming allegations related to the 2020 U.S. election, including allegations of interference by the CCP. I have immediately declassified the material and turned the documents over to the Chairman Grassley, for further review. That's the U.S. Senator from Iowa, Charles Grassley. So there's your FBI Director. Now, the last FBI Director said that there was no Chinese interference. Maybe Russia, but not China. And now we've got declassified information that China was, I guess, printing ballots and fake driver's license. So it's a big ballot stuffing operation. And that's how, I guess, China put Biden into the White House.
I mean, they have to take care of the guy that they're paying for, right? And I have to say this. First of all, Kash Patel, just release the documents into the public. You've declassified them. Get them out to everybody. We want to see them. Don't just throw them to some congressman that isn't going to do enough about it. And let's just be realistic. Congressional hearings, they can accomplish some things, but they really don't get the job done. Throw it out in the public. Let everybody look into it. John Solomon apparently has gotten some access to some things. Just hand it to John Solomon if you need to, and let him publish them out. But this is showing, again, all the things that Democrats do, and the CCP and Democrats are aligned in many ways. In fact, the uniparty's aligned with China. That's one of our big problems right now. But they're so aligned with China. They're so willing to take down our country, or at least to put it at risk, for their political benefit in maintaining power. This is why what Donald Trump is doing freaks Democrats out, because they won't have access to these sorts of things. Now, there's no indication that they actually were successful in stuffing the ballots, but there's also no indication that they didn't do it, and that Christopher Wray lied before Congress. This is another time. And by the way, he lied by omission. He said Russia, they were looking into it and they thought that they had done something about it, and they didn't mention anything about China. We know apparently from these documents that the word went out all over the FBI and even to the other intel agencies to squash this story. If that's true, and if that's what's in these documents, lots of people need to go to jail. That's illegal for him to lie in front of Congress in particular, but they should not be hiding this from folks. We should be outraged all that's going on, not to mention all the government money that is literally a direct source of funding for all of the No Kings movement that's happening around the country. That's government money doing most of that. Certainly it's Soros money or Pierre Omidyar or this Neville Singham guy who's a CCP connected person. Yeah, they're throwing money in too. But you find out that Karen Bass directed almost all of the $32 million that went in that Cheerla organization that was the main driver of the LA riots when they first came out. That was government money that Karen Bass helped direct to them. They did their own major riot, and they want to blame Donald Trump for it. There's so much scam going on from the way that they play with our elections and the way they play with our politics through the No Kings thing with government money, your money, folks. It's got to stop. We have to come down hard on these people and hold them accountable.
In fact, here's the FBI and IRS, I think, working to try to figure out who was funding the riots in L.A. Here we go.
Hello, I'm Bill Asaley, United States Attorney for the Central District of California.
And I'm Akil Davis, the Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's Los Angeles Field Office.
And I'm Tyler Hatcher, the Special Agent in charge of IRS Criminal Investigation here in Los Angeles.
The right to assemble and protest peacefully is protected by law. Unfortunately, we've seen individuals whose intentions are to cause damage and to assault law enforcement. For example, last week we arrested an individual who was charged with conspiracy to commit and aiding and abetting civil disorders. These violent agitators put peaceful demonstrators at risk.
The FBI and our federal partners will continue to investigate individuals and organizations who are knowingly funding or committing acts of violence against law enforcement, as well as the destruction of property.
We are currently tracing money to determine who is providing funding for these riots. Funding crime doesn't just affect the criminals, it also disrupts entire communities. Each dollar funneled into illegal operations fuels violence, undermines law and order, and perpetuates fear. Make no mistake, we will identify and disrupt financial networks supporting these criminal activities.
Think before you act. The legal consequences for financing or aiding and abetting these crimes are harsh. They include imprisonment and fines.
If you have any information regarding individuals and/or organizations providing financial support to commit acts of violence or destruction of property.
All right, there you go. So, you think they'll get to the bottom of it?
I'm raising my hand. I have information. There's this thing called Data Republican on X. They're all listed right there. There you go. They need to make a raid on every one of these organizations and get all of their finances. Like, they need the subpoena out immediately. They need to take all of their records and start scouring through it. You know, it's one thing for some of these agencies, FBI or whomever, to dig into the records of political organizations that are just doing normal political things, wrangling against each other. You had Obama do that against Tea Party groups in the past. I don't know the extent to which Bush did it. I don't even think that Trump did, but even if they did, that's not the most important thing. We don't need so much to be shutting those down. But when there's ever violence involved, you need to totally go after all those records, trace down everybody. But again, a lot of it is public record. It's right there. By the way, they could walk over to Joe Biden and they could walk over to people in his administration. You know why? The Cheerlo organization got $500,000 from the Department of Homeland Security. Who directed that money to them and for what purpose? Certainly not for Homeland Security, as we're finding out right now. So there are also government actors, former and current, who need to be subject to the criminal activities that are taking place here. And they ought to start with Karen Bass.
All right, let's see. I guess we're hearing that President Trump, they've put a lid on the day, and President Trump will not be speaking to the American people tonight. That's what we're hearing.
Yep. Nick Sorter reported that. I've seen it a couple other places. Listen, I think they're just taking a look at the situation. You and I may slightly disagree on this, but I do not think that Donald Trump's barreling in to military action here. I don't care what Lindsey Graham says. And Lindsey Graham is so incredibly absurd. What we saw him say today, I mean, the guy is just flipping crazy. It's one thing to talk about what we might do with military action, which, again, I'm personally against at this stage, but, someone can argue it. I mean, something's going on there, right? And even if I disagree with him. But Lindsey Graham loves war. He thrives when he sees war happening. He loves sending our treasure and our men to go die and be spent on these stupid expeditionary things. And we had better be very cautious. This one, I think, is potentially much worse than anything we had to endure in Iraq and Afghanistan. And again, those miserably failed. They miserably failed. It wasn't just we could have done better. No, we didn't even get anywhere. Both of those nations are being led by people who want nothing to do with the United States and undermine us in the region.
Kelly Meyer, I think she's with News Now, is reporting that Secretary Noem had an allergic reaction today. She was transported to the hospital by ambulance. Out of caution, she's alert and recovering.
Wow, big news. That I didn't see that. Let's pray for her recovery. I'm not a big fan of Kristi Noem, but I hate seeing stuff like this. It's really a challenge, and we want the Trump administration to be successful. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what else. Let's go to worldviewreport.com, your daily aggregated news site.
And that there is a significant percentage of our society.
Sorry, turn that down, will you? Thank you, guys. Let's see here. Here we go. This is a big story today. OpenAI wins $200 million U.S. defense contract. OpenAI.
I'm not a fan of OpenAI.
No, exactly.
I really think that they're running their business in a crappy way. I mean, it's bad enough all the Palantir stuff that's taking place right now. And I thought Palantir does AI. Why are they going to OpenAI? Why would they give them a contract? What's the usefulness there? I mean, go to Grok, go to somewhere else. I mean, there are other platforms that can handle this too. But anyway, what can I say?
Under this award, the performer will develop prototype frontier AI capabilities to address critical national security challenges in both warfighting and enterprise domains, end quote. That's what the Pentagon said, at least.
Well, I mean, they made the decision. Listen, I will say this. We're going into a world where AI is going to be an important factor in everything that happens. You're seeing this Google product that creates videos. Those videos look amazingly real. Now, there would be a way to detect that it's really AI even still, and I don't think that you can ever entirely go away from that. You just have to have finer and finer detection tools. But that said, it's so realistic looking that unless you're a computer geek that knows how to do such things, it's going to look very real. The only way to judge against it is to say, hey, I've never seen that actor before in my life. That looks odd. That's going to be the way to do it. That's so good what Google's doing. So you're going to see movies being created with AI. A lot of actors are going to be going off the scene, and it's just going to be really interesting and possibly very surreal to watch how we all react to that. But when it comes to these sorts of processes, listen, I use AI every day. It helps me. It's much quicker for research. I can rely on most online AIs to quickly scan documents that I'm looking for. That gives me a quick start on my research. I still have to do other work, but that aspect of it has been fantastic. Coding with AI has just been phenomenal. But what it's going to do in those areas is make us highly efficient. It's not taking away anything from us. But when you start injecting it into government with companies like OpenAI that, frankly, don't have a good track record in terms of security, and they're grabbing all your information. They've got it all. Every time you interact with it, they're keeping it all. It's hard to see that. It's not as transparent as in other places. So we're in an AI world. It's going to change things. I don't think it's going to destroy us, and I don't agree with. I don't think the Terminator's coming in either of our lifetimes, even if in our children's lifetimes. But it's going to radically transform how we do things in this world.
All right, folks. That's the Washington Report for Worldview Tube. Jim's website, theconservativecaucus.org, theconservativecaucus.org. Jim, I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about tomorrow.
Oh, boy, it's coming.
Waiting for President Trump's speech. I'm very eager to hear from him. We're at day 5 now. We still haven't heard a speech from him on this, so very eager to hear him lay out his worldview on all this, that's for sure. All right, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Our website is worldviewtube.com, obviously, and if you want to support the broadcast and what we're doing to push it all out for free, worldviewfoundation.com is one way you can do it, worldviewfoundation.com. Another way you can do it is by going to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. These are products we use every day, like Bella Grace, Gatatana, Numi. Great products there we use. Great ways to support your health, I think, and us at the same time. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Thanks for watching. May God save America. Take care.
You're watching Worldview Tube, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcast